or forfeiting our interests. He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial. How can I convince you when you're introduced to here? You're trying to hard way from each time that I've gone here. You're introduced to me with my big left away in fear. Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show? My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something. We both took the same role, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that. Well, it's just a show. How I can see the name is just a thing. He is the free American, Clay Douglas. Catch Free American weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. Every time I think about the damn and that, the angry moon beside me till I'm almost overcome. I want to tear the moon out of the sky and drop the sack. For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American. I am Clay Douglas. I am the voice of liberty. My guest today is John. How do you pronounce your last name, John? Is it Darash?
John Darash, yep.
All right. And you've got, we got your website up here. It's the National Liberty Alliance, and you're establishing and encouraging people to set up and establish grand juries, common law grand juries in every state. Is that right?
That's correct. The purpose of the site is to educate and to allow people to communicate with each other within their states from county to county and then from state to state for a national movement by the people, and a grassroots movement to take back the republic by taking back the courts through the juries.
And this is nothing revolutionary. This is nothing illegal. This is written up in our Constitution. It's part of our Constitution. Is that?
Well, it's more than it's in the Bill of Rights. It's not even in the Constitution.
Okay.
It's the Bill of Rights. It's its own authority. It's an unalienable right of the people, protected by the Fifth Amendment.
All right. Let me see if I get my other station up here. All right. Hold on just a minute, and let me try to get this fixed. I've got another station here that's putting it up on TalkStream, and evidently he's got some programming problems. So hold on just a second. Let me get a hold of Truth Radio and see if we can get this fixed. It's connecting here. Just a moment. Well, I've got nothing but music and noise, and I haven't been able to. Nobody can hear my my introduction.
Incredible. There's nothing there. There's nothing there to play.
Well, sir, it's there. It's playing.
I'll get up and look at it. Okay.
I've tried for the last 5 minutes to get up there, and all I get is noise and static and stuff. So let's see if we can get that fixed. All right, and now we'll try it again. All right. Now we've got it. All right. John, what I'd like to do here is on your website, nationallibertyalliance.org, you've got a video up that got good audio, and it really talks about the power of the grand jury. If you don't mind, I'd like to play that for our audience.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It'll give a good explanation for what we're doing, and so I think it does prime the listener. It's about 35 minutes long, I believe.
Okay, sir. We'll launching that now. This is from the
The
National
only
Liberty Alliance.
peaceful solution. We in America do not have government by the majority. We have government by the majority who participate. Thomas Jefferson. Today we have a constitutional crisis, a judicial crisis, we have a political crisis, and a monetary crisis. Add to that a national emergency, and we've come to the end of America. If you fail to act today, this will be America's children. Silence and non-action equals consent. In 1 Chronicles chapter 28, verse 20, we read, "Be strong and of good courage, and do it. Fear not, nor be dismayed, for the Lord God, even my God, will be with thee. He will not fail thee, nor forsake thee, until thou hast finished all the work for the service of the house of the Lord." Power. It's all about power. Today, the elite control the people through legislation, corporations, monopolies. They control our government through the two major parties, the Republican and the Democratic parties. They control our judicial system through the Bar Association. They control our education. They control our entertainment. They control our media. They control our religion. And they control our money. And all this adds up to the New World Order. But it's all about power. With these two power structures, they're able to control the entire country, our entire government, our judicial process, and all the people. Today we're going to talk about judicial power. Our solution: establish 3,141 common law grand juries in all 3,141 United States counties. It is the duty of the common law grand jury to expose all fraud and corruption, whether it is in the political, judicial realm, and stop it. The authority of the grand jury is found only in the Bill of Rights. Therefore, it comes from God and not government. Fifth Amendment: no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. A presentment differs from an indictment in that it is an accusation made by a grand jury on their own motion, either upon their own observation and knowledge or upon evidence before them, while an indictment is preferred to the suit of the government and is usually framed in the first instance by the prosecuting officer of the government and by him laid before the grand jury to be found or ignored. Using New York as an example, one Monday morning our servant government will awaken to 62 common law grand juries, acting together in one accord and bring these people under control. At the time of this recording, we have 46 states across the nation already working on grand juries. One day, our government will awaken to the common law grand juries in 50 states, acting together in one accord, and then liberty's light will shine once again to a lost world. The following is from a U.S. Supreme Court ruling, the United States versus Williams. Anton Scalia, writing for the majority, said, "It is a constitutional fixture in its own right. The American grand jury is neither part of the judicial, executive, nor legislative branch of government, but instead belongs to the people. It is in effect a fourth branch of government, governed and administered to directly by and on behalf of the American people, and its authority emanates from the Bill of Rights. The Fifth Amendment demands a traditional, functional, common law grand jury." They went on to say that the grand jury is an institution separate from the courts. The courts do not preside over the functioning of the common law grand jury. The courts have no supervisory judicial authority over the common law grand jury. The grand jury's functional, independent from the judicial branch is evident both in the scope of its power to investigate criminal wrongdoing and in the manner in which its power is exercised. The grand jury can investigate merely on the suspicion that a law has been violated, or even because it wants assurance that it is not. The grand jury needs not identify the offenders, its suspects, or even the precise nature of the offense it is investigating. The grand jury requires no authorization from its constituting courts to initiate an investigation or to seek an indictment. The grand jury operates without the interference of a presiding judge. The grand jury swears in its own witnesses and deliberates in total secrecy. The grand jury remains free to pursue its investigations, unhindered by external influences or supervision, so long as it does not trench upon the legitimate right of any witness called before it. The Fifth Amendment constitutional guarantee presupposes an investigative body acting independently of either prosecutor, attorney, or judge. The grand jury belongs to no branch of the institutional government, serving as a kind of a buffer or referee between the government and the people. The Sixth Amendment's right to counsel does not attach when an individual is summoned to appear before the grand jury, even if he is the subject of the investigation. It would run counter to the whole history of the grand jury institution to permit an indictment to be challenged on the grounds that there was incompetent or inadequate evidence before the grand jury. So what's possible? We can turn back the political and judicial clock to 1789. We can indict criminals, including judges and politicians. We can reinstate the real duties of the sheriff. We can reinstate the elected committeemen. We can reopen our armories and reinstate our militia. We can force compliance to the Third Continental Congress 2009 Articles of Freedom. We can stop open political corruption and bind them by the chains of the Constitution. We can stop open judicial corruption and bind them by the chains of the Constitution. We can do all of the above in 30 days or less. We can save America. Qualifications. There must be at least 25 members statewide. You must be over 18 years old. The members must be people of the jurisdiction of your state. Jurisdiction. No decision of a grand jury is reviewable in any court of the government. Any government transgression against anyone in any respect. Any government breaking of articles of peace or security. Any dispute regarding anyone who has been unconstitutionally detained or removed by the government without legal sentence of his peers from his lands, his castles, his liberties, or lawful rights. Jury rules. It is the duty of the grand jury, if anyone's unalienable rights have been violated or removed without legal sentence of their peers from their lands, homes, liberties, or lawful right, we, the 25, shall straightway restore them. And if a dispute shall arise concerning this matter, it shall be settled according to the judgment of the 25 grand jurors, the sureties of the peace. Marbury versus Madison, a legal maxim. Every right, when withheld, must have a remedy, and every injury its proper redress. William Blackstone. Hoke versus Henderson. That statute which would deprive a citizen of the rights of person or property without a regular trial, according to the course and usage of common law, would not be the law of the land. There is a common law principle which states that for there to be a crime, there must first be a victim, corpus delicti. In the absence of a victim, there can be no crime, and the state cannot be the victim. In order to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, by deliberating under natural law, principled under justice, honor, and mercy, for a perpetual administration of trust on behalf of the people, acknowledging the foundations upon which all law weighs. The common law grand jury can and will take control. We will read the Riot Act to all of our elected and selected Supreme Court judges. Prosecutors will have no more puppet jurors and juries. We will end corruption in our state capitals. Sheriffs are the people's police force and are the top cop. They must keep their oaths and disobey any illegal orders, and we will back them up. The common law grand jury indictment cannot be stopped. The process. Grand jury issues a true bill of indictment. True bills are signed by the grand jury foreman. Indictments are filed with the clerk of the courts, thus beginning a formal criminal proceeding. U.S. Code 18, subsection 2071. Whoever willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, or destroys, or attempts to do so, documents filed or deposited with any clerk or officer of any court shall be fined or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both. U.S. Code 18, 2076. Clerk is to file. Whoever, being a clerk, willfully refuses or neglects to make or forward any report, certificate, statement, or document as required by law shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. And this one is very specifically for the judge. Whosoever knowingly uses intimidation, threatens, or corruptly persuades another person or attempts to do so, or engages in misleading conduct towards another person with the intent to influence, delay, or prevent an official proceeding, cause or induce any person to withhold, a document, or other objects from an official proceeding, alter, destroy, mutilate, or conceal an official proceeding, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. We have been conditioned. We have been robbed. If you have a spiritual problem, you have been programmed to find a priest or a pastor. If you have a political problem, you've been programmed to join a party. If you have a justice problem, you're programmed to hire a lawyer. This makes you a slave. This is where you need to find freedom. Spiritual power gives forgiveness of sins and gives you your unalienable rights. It gives you a sense of justice, a sense of honor, and a sense of mercy. Political power provides for domestic tranquility, common defense, and the general welfare. Judicial power establishes justice and secures the blessings of the liberty. These three powers control your destiny. These three powers can free you from tyrants. When we don't have control of these three powers, then we are subject to the rule of tyrants. And right now they have programmed us to run away from these things. They have programmed us to find a priest or a pastor, to find a party, to find a lawyer, to get into their process, the things that they've created. And therefore, you are a slave until you come above it. Take control of your destiny. Until you control these three powers, you cannot have liberty. 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14 says, "If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sins, and will heal their land." You know, if we do not have spiritual power, if we do not have a relationship with our God, if we do not go into our prayer closets and work it out as a son to a father, then you cannot have political power. You cannot have judicial power. You cannot have a sense of justice. You cannot have a sense of honor. You cannot have a sense of mercy. You will have self-righteousness and not true righteousness. We cannot then establish a justice and we cannot secure the blessings of liberty, for we have not been blessed with liberty. So, you know, we must turn back to God, and we must humble ourselves. We must pray. We must seek His face. We must turn from our wicked ways, and then He may forgive us our sins and heal our land. The judicial fraud. Our courts are controlled by a private association. The state does not license lawyers. Furthermore, lawyers do not practice law. They practice statutes. The state bar card is not a license. It is a union's dues card. The bar is a professional association like the actors' unions, painters' unions, etc. No other association, even doctors, issue their own licenses. All licenses are issued by the state. The Bar Association is a private association. It cannot license anyone on behalf of the state. The ABA accredits all the law schools, holds their private examinations, selects the students that they will accept into their organization, and issues them so-called licenses for fees, but does not issue state licenses to lawyers. The bar is the only one that can punish or disbar a lawyer, and not the state. The ABA also selects the lawyers that they consider qualified for judgeship and various other offices in the state. Only the Bar Association or their designating committees can remove any of these lawyers from public office. In Bovier's Law Dictionary, 1858, it tells us justice is synonymous with virtue. It is confined to the things simply good or evil. Luke chapter 6, verse 19 tells us virtue emanates from God. History records the struggles in courts between the mind of God and the mind of man. Civil law versus common law. In Luke chapter 11, verse 52, we read where the Lord said, "Woe unto you lawyers, for you have taken away the key of knowledge." God is that key of knowledge. Right to practice law. New York Code, subsection 478, says practicing or appearing as an attorney at law without being admitted and registered. It says nothing about being licensed. Lawyers and attorneys are not licensed to practice law. The certificate from the state Supreme Court only authorizes them to represent wards of the court. Wards of the court are infants and persons of unsound mind, someone placed under the protection of a legal guardian by the court. A next friend is a person who represents someone else who is unable to attend to his or her own interests. Those are the Federal Rules of Civil Procedures. The practice of law cannot be licensed by any state. U.S. Supreme Court ruling, Schwar versus the Board of Examiners. This is another U.S. Supreme Court ruling that says the practice of law is an occupation of common right. And again, another U.S. Supreme Court ruling. Members of the group who are competent non-lawyers can assist other members of the group achieve the goals of the group in court without being charged with unauthorized practice of law. Statutes are not law. Our courts are controlled by a private association. Legislators are authorized under the Constitution, ordained by the people to write statutes and codes that are enforced as law to control bureaucrats, municipalities, government agencies, elected officials, interstate commerce, but not the people, whose rights are unalienable and cannot be legislated. Self versus re. The common law is the real law, the supreme law of the land. The code, rules, regulations, policies, and statutes are not the law. Bonnet versus Valera. The general rule is that an unconstitutional statute, though having the form and name of law, is in reality no law, but is wholly void and ineffective for any purpose, since its unconstitutionality dates from the time of its enactment. In legal contemplation, it is as inoperative as if it had never been passed. Since an unconstitutional law is void, the general principle follows, that it imposes no duties, it confers no rights, it creates no office, it bestows no power or authority on anyone. It affords no protection and justifies no acts performed under it. A void act cannot be legally consistent with a valid one. An unconstitutional law cannot operate to supersede any existing law. Indeed, insofar as the statute runs counter to the fundamental law of the land, the Constitution, it is superseded thereby. No one is bound to obey an unconstitutional law, and no courts are bound to enforce it. It's all about jurisdiction and consent. Challenge the jurisdiction, refuse to consent, and you will win. To deprive the people of their sovereignty, it is first necessary to get the people to agree to submit to the authority of the entity they have created. That is done by getting them to claim they are citizens of that entity. In a Supreme Court ruling, U.S. Supreme Court ruling, State versus Waters, if defendant enters a plea of not guilty and is in court the day of the trial, the court has jurisdiction over that person. Muhammad versus State, U.S. Supreme Court ruling. Municipal courts do not have jurisdiction to render final judgments on felony charges. People versus Gabay, the U.S. Supreme Court ruling. An appearance ticket is not an accusatory instrument, and its filing does not confer jurisdiction over the defendant. Another U.S. Supreme Court ruling, People versus Gisti. Service of an appearance ticket on an accused does not confer personal or subject matter jurisdiction upon a criminal court. Again, it's all about jurisdiction and consent. Challenge the jurisdiction and you will win. Trial courts act without jurisdiction when it acts without inherent or common law authority. U.S. Supreme Court ruling, State versus Rodriguez. Basso versus UPL, another U.S. Supreme Court ruling. When challenged, jurisdiction must be documented, shown, and proven to lawfully exist before a case may lawfully proceed in the courts. Fortimat versus State, U.S. Supreme Court ruling. Where the court is without jurisdiction, it has no authority to do anything other than to dismiss the case. Davis versus State, U.S. Supreme Court ruling. Criminal law magistrates have no power of their own and are unable to enforce any ruling. Cruden versus Neal, U.S. Supreme Court ruling. Every man is independent of all laws, except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow man without his consent. So therefore, if there is no injured party, there is no crime. Simply put, legislators do not have the authority to legislate people's behavior. Neither do the courts have the authority to enforce legislation to control the people's behavior. Law is not complex. Common law is natural law. It is written in the hearts of all men. The Holy Bible tells us, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Matthew 22, verses 37 through 40. The law is written in the hearts of men. Romans chapter 2, verse 15. Natural law. If there is no injured party, there is no crime. Principles of liberty. Consent and jurisdiction. It's all about consent and jurisdiction. In order to have liberty, it is extremely important that you understand consent. Our servant government can do nothing without your consent. The Declaration of Independence, we read, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Now, the consent of the governed, two of the most powerful consentors are the common law grand jury and the committeemen, the elected committeemen. And in another video, we will discuss the elected committeemen. But right now, we're looking at the grand jury, and the key thing here is the consent of the government. You have, as an individual, get to consent. Every time you come in contact with the government, you can consent to what they want to do or you cannot consent. And whenever they resist you, they are the servant. Whenever they resist you, then they are in violation. They have exceeded their jurisdiction when they resist you. They can only act within the jurisdiction, within the authority that they have been given. Once they step outside of that authority, they are now violating you, and they are subject to being sued and subject to criminal prosecution. Any authority our servants have is by our consent. If they act outside their authority, they are subject to criminal charges under U.S. Code 4218 and liable for damages under U.S. Codes and common law. Our servant government has defrauded us. They know they need the people's consent, but they dumbed us down and created facades. The existing grand juries are puppets controlled by the politically appointed government-paid prosecutors who orchestrate the will of the grand jury. The existing trial juries are puppets controlled by a government-paid judge under political pressure to maintain the status quo, who orchestrates the will of the trial jury. They know they need the people's consent, and they commit fraud every time they use the puppet juries. And now you know.
All right.
Principle of liberty. Consent and jurisdiction. It's all about consent and jurisdiction. The judge is your servant. He has no authority to judge and sentence you without your consent. In legal terms, when the judge asks you, do you understand? He means, do you stand under the authority of this court? So when you say yes, you just gave him or her jurisdiction over you. Our U.S. Constitution only authorizes common law courts. Our New York State Constitution says the courts of appeal, the Supreme Court, including the appellate division, shall be courts of record. A court of record removes the power of the judge to make a ruling. His role is that of the administrator of the court. The final terminator is the tribunal, who is either the sovereign plaintiff or a jury. Remember, the servant cannot rule over the master. Can the clay rule over the potter? Our servant government has defrauded us. They know they need the people's consent, but they dumbed us down and created facades. The existing grand juries are puppets controlled by the politically appointed government paid prosecutor who orchestrates the will of the grand jury. Every man is independent of all law except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow man without his consent. Prudent versus Neal. Herein is liberty. If you do not give them consent, they have no jurisdiction over you. So under U.S. Codes 42 and 18, when you are detained for violating a statute, you have just been kidnapped. And if the judge sets a bail, he has just set a ransom. And when the prosecutor confirms the charges, they are all part of a conspiracy, and you can put them in jail and receive compensation for your injuries. It's all about consent and jurisdiction. To find out more, go to nationallibertyalliance.org.
All right, I'm going to stop that there. I want to bring you back up, John. You know, this video, I've just put this up on my Facebook. I will put it up on the Free American site because I've been telling people for years they have refined the art of slavery to the point the slaves don't know they're slaves. I'm not a slave. I can go get my pickup and go get a beer. Watch. What you've said here, it outlines that perfectly. They have enslaved us. This is tyranny. I've also said if a man with a badge can walk up and say, "What's that in your pocket? Is that marijuana that I smell?" Whoa! You're going to have to go to jail. You're going to go to jail and you're going to have to work at slave labor, slave wages, for IBM or somebody like that, for the next 2 or 3 years.
Right.
You live in a police state. This is tyranny. There's no corpus delicti. If there's nobody injured, there's not a crime. So if I want to smoke a joint, if I want to snort a line of coke, if I want to do that in the privacy of my own home, not threatening anyone else, why should somebody be able to kick my door in and take me to jail?
Well, that's absolutely true. The principle of common law is, again, if there is no victim, there is no crime. People do destructive things to themselves all the time, and the problem is we've been demoralized and robbed of the truth, and the government has taught us that they need to control our behavior, that we're incapable. But we need to teach our children it's up to them to control their behavior. It's up to them to be good people within the societies that they live in. It's up to them to do the right thing. But you'll always have some people who will do the wrong thing, but even those people can be corrected. Again, common law is not about punishment, it's about restitution. If you break the law, if you violate another human being and you do wrong, you go to court, and if you're the person who's the victim and you've been violated, you go to court and you bear witness against these people, and when they're finished with you, they throw you out of the court, and that's it. Meanwhile, they'll take this person, they'll put them in jail, and make money off going to jail. They do that through your SQ funds, and there's other processes. If the people have anything, they take it away from them, they fine them, and the state gets all that money, and the victim gets nothing. Well, that's not justice. Another principle of common law, a maxim is for every injury there must be a remedy. That's the requirement of common law. And so therefore, when you go to court, it's not about putting someone in jail. It's about working out the process to make sure that this person pays restitution to that person until they're fully back to where they were prior to their violation by that individual. And in that process, you very well might bring someone back into compassion, back into society, and they become a good person at the end of this whole thing. Another thing they do when people, I just heard recently that some high percentage, 40, 50%, somewhere around there, I think for black people, under 30, it's a higher rate, something like 60%, and for white people or other people under 30, it's something like 40 or 50% of those people have been arrested for some kind of a crime, a felony, some kind of a crime. And one of the things they love to do is get you on these felonies, because once you're a felon, you're always a felon, and you can't get a weapon. You can't get a permit to have a weapon, and I think that's what's behind this whole thing, part of it anyway. It's part of their strategy.
Ayn Rand told us the government has no control over honest citizens, so they have to make criminals out of us.
That's right. That's right. You can't even run a business without breaking their laws, and you don't even know whether you're breaking them half the time or not. And they put things upon you that's impossible to keep, so they know you're breaking the laws somewhere, their laws. It's not our laws, it's statutes. They're not real laws. You see, the people have it in themselves, the power of just objecting to the whole thing, nullifying it. Just like a jury can nullify a law, people can nullify the law. And they have to realize that. They have to bone up on the law. They've been robbed. We should have been taught this in school. When you go in and you look at, Black's Law, and it says here what a nisi prius court is. A nisi prius court is a statutory court. It's a court that's created by statutes and operates by statutes. And here's what the law says. Nisi prius is a Latin term. This is Black's Fifth. Prius meaning first, nisi meaning unless. A nisi prius procedure is a procedure in which a party first agrees unless he objects. So when you go into their courts, and they're a nisi prius court, or a statute, they're operating under statutes, if you don't object, that's it. You've consented. That's the law. People have to understand they have to object. Unfortunately, our courts, our Supreme Courts, or courts of record, or common law courts, every county is supposed to have a common law court by a constitution. The Constitution requires that all of our courts be constitutional. There are administrative courts, but you should know that you're in an administrative court because you're participating in it by choice. But they even hide that on their administrative courts. But when you go into your Supreme Court or your Common Court, Court of Commons, whatever you might call it in your state, New York we call it a Supreme Court. We have one in every single county of New York. And the New York State Constitution says that all Supreme Courts are courts of record. Now, a court of record, when you go into the Black's Law Dictionary, defines it as a court that operates according to common law, the process of common law. And so all of our courts are supposed to be common law. And even the federal Constitution does the same thing, that all courts are common law courts. So when you go into a Supreme Court, no matter what, it doesn't matter what case you're going in there, whether you're coming in on your own, making a complaint, whether it's civil or, an equity court, or if it's criminal court. And in common law, it's all one. There's no separation between the criminal or the equity or the civil. It's just one court. But nevertheless, what happens is you get hijacked the moment you walk into that court. Immediately, the process goes according to statutory processes, and the judge is ruling on statutes. And the attorneys are making decisions and making their papers on statutes, okay? And when you come in with common law, it's rejected. And you have to understand that so you can defeat that court by challenging the jurisdiction and making that judge go towards the common law. And people don't realize this. Once you hire a lawyer, you just opt right in to the statutory processes. And you're going to lose. It's all about money.
I think your video pointed it out pretty concisely, that if you hire a lawyer, basically you're saying, I'm mentally incompetent. I'm incompetent. I went to after I had an accident here, and they tried to, you need to get guardianship. They told my family, you need to get guardianship. You need to make arrangements for long-term care. Make sure he takes these pills. Make sure he takes this medicine. I wouldn't take the medicine. I said, the only medicine I need is a joint and a Harley. I wouldn't take any medicine. I wouldn't take any of the shots they tried to give me. And they threatened to hold me down and give me the shot. I said, they did. They taught me. They taught me how to hurt people, in special forces. So you try to hold me down. You're the one that's going to be in the hospital. You're the one that's going to need a hospital. I won't.
Right, we got to bone up on our rights. We have to bone up on law, on common law, on real law, on the Constitution, on particularly the Bill of Rights. We have to bone up on this. We have been robbed. We should have been taught this when we were children in school. We were not taught this. I have a copy of an 8th grade education. You can find it on our documents page. And whenever I do a presentation or talk to people, I usually hand that out. And it's a one-pager. And it's a test from an 8th grade test from 1895 out of Kansas. That test is college level, graduate level. And that's done in eight grades. Today, our school is full of nonsense. It's full of really just how the government controls you. It's psycho stuff. It's all about psychology, and it's about controlling the people. It's mind control, and that's why you go to school. Today, when you walk into school, you think you're walking into a militarized zone. They're getting our children used to coming up to checkpoints where they'll empty their pockets and they'll empty their pocketbooks and they'll disrobe partially and they'll walk through the thing and they'll put the wand around them and if they violate anything they'll put little handcuffs on these little kids with the plastic ties. They say they're not handcuffs, but they actually bind them up. And you have these people who dress like officers, and they've got a mace on them and maybe a stick or something. I don't think they have weapons, guns, but nevertheless, they look like a cop if they're not. And it's all security. And people go onto airplanes and they disrobe for them. They go through these things, and it's insane, total insanity. Jefferson said, if you're willing to, it was Franklin, I think, said, if you're willing to give up the freedom for security, you'll get neither. Right now, what people do not realize and understand is that we are under corporatism. And if you look up for Nazism, you'll find Nazism is corporatism. The state has been turned into a corporation. The counties have incorporated. The towns, the cities, the United States of America is incorporated. That means it's owned by someone. And trust me, you don't own it. Someone else owns it. The elite owns it. And they operate under corporate statutes, not constitutions. That's why people scratch their head and they don't understand why certain rulings are made, because these rulings are being made in corporate courts. You have to challenge it. You have to expose it. You have to fight it, and you have to put the skin of the judge onto the table. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. And but the key thing, that we really need to do, we need to bone up and understand what our unalienable rights are. We need to understand how the court system works. We need to understand what real law is, what's right and what's wrong.
I don't know how many times, John, over the years, 20 years that I've been publishing the Free American and doing this radio show, I've had so many people on here that said, well, I went to court and they told me, don't bring that Constitution in here.
That's right. I've heard it many times. Many times. And the next thing you know, in my cases, when I go in, I just object. And then when you go home, you write an affidavit and you write a supplement to the court case and you add that judge in as a defendant for violating your unalienable rights and for conspiracy. And you go back to court and you'll see another judge up on the bench. And we'll go for round 2 and round 3 if we have to.
It was interesting.
Go past round 2.
I had a contract with somebody, and they tried to put somebody in to the corporation that I set up as president. Somebody's brother-in-law as president. I spent a day with him and told the investors, your brother-in-law is an idiot, and you need to, you're going to lose your whole company if you put him in. Oh, you quit? No, I don't quit. I got a contract. No, I don't quit at all. I'm just telling you your brother-in-law is an idiot. Mm-hmm. So they sued me to try to get out of the contract. And I went to court. This was in Las Vegas. And I went behind the bar and was standing there in my suit beside another guy in the suit. And he looked over and said, oh, are you Mr. Douglas's attorney? And I said, no, I'm Mr. Douglas. Your Honor, this is the defendant. Can't you make him hire a lawyer? And I said, Judge, I think if you'll look at my countersuit here, you'll agree that I don't need a lawyer. I'm perfectly capable of defending myself and handling this case. And the judge looked at the lawyer and smiled and said, no, I can't make him hire a lawyer. And
well, they do usually try to do that, though, because what they do in a lot of court cases is when someone comes in and tries to defend themselves, come in their own person, not self-representation, your own person. You should never call yourself, that you're coming in as a pro se or anything like that. You're coming in as me. And the bottom line is what they try to do is they try to move the court, and the court usually goes along with it, to do a competency test. Because they're trying to rule you incompetent so that they force a lawyer upon you. Once they force the lawyer upon you, then they can screw you around. That's it. You're done. You're in the system.
They did that exact thing to me after I got out of the hospital. They sent me to a psychiatrist. I went to the psychiatrist, sat down in his office, and he said, do you know why you're here, Mr. Douglas? And I said, frankly, no. He said, well, you're here so I can determine if you're competent. And I said, well, see, that's why I don't understand. Because I'm perfectly competent. Well, I have to ask you some questions. Sure, go ahead. Do you ever hear voices when nobody's in the room? No. Do you ever see people in the room when there's nobody there? I said, I think that'd be difficult to do. Do you have any special powers that other people don't? I said, absolutely. What? What kind of powers do you have that other people don't? I said, I read 1,000 words a minute. I got 90% comprehension. I don't know many people can do that. Do you? And after an hour of talking to this gentleman, I said, well, how do I do, Doc? He said, well, you're eccentric, but you're not crazy. And I walked out, and no, and shortly after we had an investigator show up. The lady said, you know, Mr. Douglas, I've been interviewing head injury patients for 7 years. I interviewed 7 before you today. I've never met anybody as well recovered as you are. And I said, well, you know, maybe I wasn't injured quite as badly as they thought. Maybe they just said I was suffering from brain damage to justify a $750,000 hospital bill. And she left, and I never heard from the courts again, and nobody, and I'm still run all my own affairs, and I am still perfectly competent. But it was all, I mean, the hospitals are in on this, the lawyers are in on this. It was all a way to control. And I don't think they like me publishing that magazine and doing this radio show.
Right. Well, the medical field, look, they're controlled by the pharmaceutical companies. Their schools are controlled by the pharmaceutical companies. It's all about dealing with your ailments but never curing the disease. Same thing with lawyers. You know, lawyers they learn in bar schools, and they're taught lies. They're taught that the Constitution, they're taught that the statutes are the law. They're taught not to argue the Constitution, that you can find statutes to support your case. You don't need to use the Constitution because that creates a controversy if you bring up a Constitution. So use the statutes to interpret it. That's what they're taught. They're taught that common law has been done away with. That's been done away in the mid-1800s. And all of it's a lie straight from hell. They say that the common law grand juries have been done away with in the 1800s. And actually, as late as 2001, the people of New York, particularly, they have voted in again that the grand jury still be empowered and that they have the authority and the right to investigate the government itself and even the judicial system. And even with all the arguments and all these bar attorneys trying to destroy this, you see, the attorneys and the lawyers, the judges, the last thing they want is people power in the courts. For the regular people to come in and look around and see what's going on, then they'd be found out. It's nothing but criminality is going on. They're all criminals. I haven't met a judge that I think doesn't belong behind bars. I really believe that. But let me tell you what we're doing at National Liberty Alliance. We are forming common law grand juries across the country, and we're teaching principles. We're not out for a witch hunt. We're not looking to put people in jail or do any of those things, but we want to bring our courts back to common law. If you can bring your courts back to common law, you bring your government back to common law, because the courts will have to deal with the government when they break the law and go outside of common law. So it's a very simple, logical, obvious conclusion there. But the bottom line is we go and talk to judges once we establish a common law court within, common law grand jury within a county. And now we supply the jury pool. We supply the people. We have a jury pool on our website that we're building up, but we also would use the jury pool off of the voters registration. And we would just supply the people. We pull the people in. We get to orientate them, not the government. What the government does is psychological things on the people to figure out, who's the best person to pull into the system that they can control. And it's all about setting up the game so that they always find the people guilty. We the people, that's the people's job. It's up to the people to form the grand jury and to orientate the grand jury so they understand what the law is. The law is not statute. They have the authority and the power to resist the law. If they think a law is unrighteous, they need to ignore it. They have the power to just ignore the law and make the decision according to righteousness. And so we're teaching people how to form grand juries within their counties, not to go for a witch hunt, to bring the judge back into a common law, under the common law, of course under the threat of potential indictment if he doesn't obey, because if he's going to break the law, we have no choice. The duty of the grand jury is to correct all wrongdoing. So we'll have to correct that wrongdoing. Same thing with the.
What's really going on in the world.
All right, hold on a minute.
Mainstream media won't tell
We just got to take a short break here.
You can listen live or listen to a large selection of archived programs. TruthRadio.com. The truth is out there.
Hold on, just got a 60-second break here for one of my stations here. Okay, good. I think that's it. Well, I've just come back up on Truth Radio. I've been doing Truth Radio for almost 20 years, and I just got back with them. And I urge you folks, if you want to listen to the shows are archived there, Blog Talk Radio, and we're also on Crusade. So, you know, these people are all trying to bring you the correct information.
Right, so anyway, what we're trying to do really is bring our courts back into the common law, exactly what our founders founded this country on. You have another commercial?
I guess so, yeah. Just a second. It's just a station break. Yeah, right. I think that's it. Not quite.
Happened again. Basketball, eh? Never really understood the game myself. How did I see it first a little? Broken arm shoot.
Okay, I'll bring them back up after their little commercials have stopped here. I need Truth Radio because that puts it up on TalkStream Live and all that. And we'll get this worked out. I'll get that removed so that we don't have to put up with that tomorrow. But you know, I've told people they don't call television programming for nothing. My God, we've got all of these crime shows, these lawyer shows, you know, everything from Miami Vice, you know, to glorifying the police, glorifying the system. And it really is programming, isn't it?
Well, exactly. Yeah, they use entertainment to continue that programming that they started in school from a very young age. And they've trained even our parents. They put them into positions where they have to send children to school because they can't afford to live unless both parents work. And so you're finding children going to school at age 3 and 4, you know, preschool and preschool and so on. So all of this is damaging to our children. We're giving our children up to the state, and we need to stop it.
All right, hold on a second. Let me try. I got a comment on that, but let me try to bring Truth back up for the second hour here. Let's see if we've got the commercial stopped. Yeah. Hold on a minute. Here's what's going on, Richard. Listen. That's what I'm getting on Truth Radio. Nothing but static. I haven't been able to do a show here for the last 5 minutes.
That's feedback. That's just...
No, sir. It was
feedback.
No, sir. It's not feedback. I brought you up because of that noise. You asked me to bring you up. I brought you up. And you've got a commercial playing on there, or the station break goes way too long. I can't keep my guest on hold and keep all the other stations on hold while I listen to music and everything else. So I appreciate if you could fix that. I'll bring Truth Radio back up now. But that's not feedback from you. That's what I got yesterday. That's what I told you about. That's what I'm getting today.
I can't figure out what in the world is going on. It's just, I don't know, Clay.
All right, I'll try it back up. You can check on it, and I'll bring it right back up.
It's just pure silence. It's pure silence right now. I'm losing program at the moment.
Okay, all I need is silence. I got everything else is working fine up until that break. Up until that break, everything was working fine. So.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sir. I'll bring it back up. All right. Getting all the bugs out. Now we're bringing Truth Radio back up. And hopefully we got... Oh, silence. That's just perfect. John Darash is my guest today. National Liberty Alliance.org. Nope, still got the problem here. I'm sorry. Hang on, John. I apologize for this, but let me get Richard to fix this. Richard, I'm still getting this static, terrible static, every time I try to connect to Truth Radio. Whoops. Evidently he's still working on it. He hadn't answered here.
Yes.
I'm still getting this static. As soon as I try to hook up to Truth Radio again, I got terrible static again.
It sounds like there's music playing in the background.
Yeah, something's playing, but it's not even recognizable as music.
Okay, I'll go to the control room and see what's going on.
All right, I'll bring it back up again, but monitor it, and if I hear the static, I'm going to hang up. All right. Known Richard for 20 years. Oh, hang on, we lost the blog talk too, so just a minute here. Maybe this is the Fusion Center screwing with me, I don't know.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please enter your...
Our menu has recently changed.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we're reconnecting you now.
All right, good. Again, we're back up with John Darash, National Liberty Alliance, and we're back up on Truth Radio. We're back up on Blog Talk, and Crusade hadn't had a problem today. So, okay, John, I think we've got you back. I think everything's working now.
All right. Anyway, as I was saying, the idea really is to get people back into control, to really construct the common law grand jury. It's up to the people to do this, and each one of their, locales in each county, and it's up to the people to bring back justice into the court. So, we built National Liberty Alliance, the website.org, the website for the purpose of teaching people about common law. Given them a class. We actually offer a full classical education right online, and so people can go up there and at their spare time spend an hour a day or 3 hours a day or whatever they want in order to learn what they should have been taught in schools. We teach court access, we teach common law, we teach the procedures and processes of law, and we teach people how to create a grand jury within their county. And what the principles are. We have all of the necessary tools to do everything necessary to get a grand jury into their counties. And once you bring a grand jury into your county and you take control of the jury process, and that's also the trial jury. We would then control the pools, the jury pools, and we would get to orientate the people and teach them what the real law is before they go into the courts to make their decisions. And we teach them that they have to have a sense of honor, a sense of justice, and a sense of mercy, and every decision needs to be made with that in mind. We also teach people the two main maxims of common law, which again I mentioned earlier. If there is no victim, there is no crime, and the second one is for every injury there must be a remedy. And these are the principles that people need to go into court with. They have the power of jury nullification. Statutes are not laws. We have never given the authority to our representatives, those who are the servants of ours, whether they're elected or hired or appointed. We've never given them the authority to control our behavior. Statutes do exactly that. It controls our behavior. And this is what the juries must nullify. If you're in a statutory court, you're not in a common law court. If a jury is acting on statutes, then you're not a real jury. It's a puppet jury controlled by the government. And that's why the people, this is the people's job to take over this process in every single county and make sure people are trained properly, with an orientation class before they go in to make decisions as a grand jurist or as a trial jurist. And again, to make the judge to obey and the prosecutor to realize not to bring these cases up, that if there is no victim, don't bring the case to us because we're not going to indict. And that's the core message we've got to send to these people. We also have to let them know that if they need that jury, they need to come to us, and if they go anyplace else to get that jury, and they try to create one themselves, that's a statutory jury, it's a violation of law, and that in itself is indictable. And that's how we will control these people. We also need to train the sheriff. He's not out there to be giving tickets to people. He's out there to protect the people, to protect the Constitution, and make sure that true law and order is upheld. And as long as these people are willing to work with us, they're all criminals, and they've been brought into the system. They've been trained into this system in their schools, and even when they come out and work in law firms and become judges. But nevertheless, we're not there for a witch hunt. We're not interested in going after their past sins. All we're interested is from this point forward they obey the law. Our goal is to save the republic, and that's where we have to stick with it. At some point, when we bring the process back to where it belongs, a lot of people have been injured. And we're going to get a lot of people calling the jury saying, hey, look, let me tell you what this judge done to me or to my family or to my children. And then we're going to have to listen to these people who have been injured, and then we're going to have to consider the indictment on that judge. We're going to have to work out a problem. We have to work the problem out, and if we can't, then you indict them. And that's how justice will be brought back into our system. And again, the grand jury has a job to do. They have a duty, and the duty is to correct all wrongdoing, whether it be in the political or the judicial realms. So if you have a politician who's selling his vote, who's going out doing unconstitutional things, they need to be warned, and they need to be given a prescription. This is what you got to do. You got to stop this. And if you don't stop this, then we're going to take you before the 25, which is the grand jury, and consider indictment. We don't want to threaten people with indictment, but certainly if they're breaking the law, we're going to give them a prescription and a chance to correct it. And if they're not going to correct it, then we're going to bring it before the full grand jury, the 25. And I'm sure they will indict anyone breaking the law, the real law. And that's how we bring our country back under the control. Well, we started this thing early in 2013. We haven't even been operating a year yet. As a matter of fact, we were drafted into the national scene. We were just a New York group. And we changed our name to National Liberty Alliance back around, I don't know, maybe May or something or June of 2013. It's probably April or May. And but since then, this has become so popular. We are in every state of the Union, all 50 states, including Hawaii and Alaska. And we are well embedded in many of those states. We have grand juries in a lot of different states already. We have 19 grand juries in New York, all of New York City, with the exception of Staten Island, which is Richmond County, which we're working on. All of New York City has elected to reconstitute the common law grand juries. We have 19, which represents 18, I'm sorry, which represents 3/4 of the population of New York State. And we have lots of other grand juries that are ready to pop, hopefully very soon. Florida is very heavy. They got quite a few grand juries in place. Pennsylvania is very heavy. Texas is moving. Arizona, all the states of the Union are moving into this process. And people are starting to catch on that they need to take back this country. Now, we know this for quite some time, and we've been frustrated. We've been, just filled with apathy because everything we try, we can't get a hold of the controls. We can't get our country back. We've been infiltrated by Nazis and communists. And that may sound crazy to people who haven't been paying attention, but the people who have been paying attention understand that. And so we, the people, the regular people, the Americans, trying to get control of their government, and we can't do it. We try going out and the tea parties, with all the movements, trying to get people elected to represent them, and a lot of them succumb to the problem. They get stuck in the system, and before you know it, they become them. And there's no way we can elect enough people to save this nation. We are not a democracy. We're a republic.
You know,
And we're ruled by the people, and only the people can save America. So it's up to the people to step up and do this. And you do this by creating and getting involved with common law grand juries within your counties and taking back control of the entire process, the judicial and the political process. This is a people thing. This is your job. The Constitution says, we have government that it says we people ordained and established this Constitution for the United States of America. Okay? We didn't create it for ourselves. We created it for them, to control them, to put them in a box. And even our Declaration of Independence says, we have government by the consent of the people. Well, this is how the people consent. They control the justice system, and they get to decide to fix all the wrongdoing. When they see a wrongdoing, they can fix it. And that's their job, that's their duty. And that's how you get government by consent. Now, they're fighting us, hand and foot. They don't want us to come into the system, because once we get into the system, they're going to stop taking all this money. They're going to be found out, and a lot of these people are probably going to end up in jail. Jail belongs for two kinds of people only, violent people and judges. And I say judges because judges are violent people. They have been doing violence against the people for a long, long time, for 50 years, maybe 100 years, and they know exactly. It took me a while. I've fought many court cases, been in the Supreme Court, federal courts, been in the town courts, the city courts, been in the family courts. I've been in all the courts, and we've been fighting this for quite a few years now. And if there's anything I come to realize, I puzzled for years on end. Do the judges really understand what's going on? Do they really understand what they're doing? Do they really understand the game? Well, recently I've come to an absolute conclusion. My experience has shown to me there's no doubt that these judges know what they're doing. They are taking us, and they're bringing us they are robbing us, and they are hijacking us into a Nisi Prius system. They're doing it on purpose, and they do everything they can to prevent that common law procedure from going through. They will not give you your unalienable rights. They will not acknowledge the Constitution, and they will always proceed according to corporate charter, which is statutes. And only the people can change that. And if the people don't step up and do it, then we're going to lose this nation. You're going to lose your country, your state. So you have to do it. NationalLibertyAlliance.org will teach you how to do it. People just have to get up and do it. And we don't have much time. So if the people don't step up soon, then they've spoken, and they decided they want slavery, and they don't want liberty.
I believe you're right. I will have this video. I already got the video up on my website, right below this show. And, for 20 years, I mean, I'm sure you've heard of Ron Branson, Jail for Judges.
Yep. I know him.
I think he was absolutely right, and I featured him 20 years ago on my radio shows. And I do have I've got a friend by the name of Roger Christie in Hawaii that is probably one of the most abused people out there. They've held him for 3 years without a trial because he started THC Ministries. And he says, and I agree with him, because I have THC Ministries of Arizona, and the plant of renown talked about in the Bible is cannabis. whether, you can call it marijuana, you can call it hemp, whatever, 10,000 products are made out of it, and they stole it from us. They sent it to Red China, they sent it to Russia. They're trying to send our money right now. The word is out that the Federal Reserve is going to sell out to China. Well, and so we're going to put the control of our money by the Constitution. We should be issuing our own money. Kennedy tried to issue our own money, Executive Order 11110. I mean, this is to me, this is the whole plan for slavery. The New World Order is a plan for slavery, and the banks have been a major part of that. Cannabis didn't get made illegal in this country. You could pay your taxes with hemp before 1932, before William Randolph Hearst decided it was competition, before Rockefeller decided it was competition, and started turning 50 million Americans into criminals.
Well, that's exactly right. One of the reasons why they wanted to make hemp illegal is because of the pharmaceutical companies. Hemp oil cures, I have no idea how many diseases it cures. It's just unbelievable. One drop of hemp oil a day on your tongue, I know it cures cancer, it cures all kinds of problems, types of that. I believe it even helps to cure diabetes and numerous other diseases. The pharmaceutical companies are not interested in curing a disease. There's too much money in treating the ailments, and that's what they do. I saw an ad on TV just recently about some medication someone's taken. They're talking about feeling pins and needles in their feet, which is the first sign of diabetes, and their toes going numb and things like that. And the pharmaceutical companies created some kind of a drug in order to cut off those feelings so that they don't feel those pins and needles, so they don't feel the numbness, that they feel better. But it doesn't cure the disease. It's not going to be long before they have to cut off a few toes and then maybe a foot and a leg and so on. And so these people are evil because they've taken this away from us. There are numerous cures for cancer out there. I know there's MMS, there's vitamin B17, which they made illegal. I don't know how many people realize that vitamin B17 is illegal. The only way you can get it is in apricot seeds. So I guess they haven't found a way to make that illegal yet. But you can't go into a drugstore and get vitamin B17.
They call it Laetrile, don't they?
Laetrile, that's correct. And I remember going to the drugstore when I first found out about this to test this out. And I went to the guy who owns the store. He was doing the stocking and going through figuring out what he needed to stock up on. And I said, hey, look, I can't find any vitamin B17 over here. Can you help me? He said, well, we should have it over there. He's going there and looking, and he said, I don't see 17. So he goes back behind the counter. He talks to his pharmacist, and he comes back out. He says, that's illegal. You can't buy that. I said, no kidding. The vitamin is illegal? He says, yeah, that is kind of strange, isn't it? So this is what we put up with. What is wrong with us? You know what I'm saying? You have MMS, cures all kinds of stuff. It cures AIDS, it cures cancer, and you have to use different ones for different cancers. But it's just amazing that we're so dumb. We've got they put what do they call that? GMO? Is that what they call it? Genetically modified organisms in our food.
Yeah, that's bug spray built already built in.
Water, and God knows what they're putting in the air.
I 20 years ago, or 45 years ago, I wrote a novel about the United States where 46 states had done exactly what you're advocating. They abolished all the laws against victimless crimes. They legalized everything, and they closed down the prison system. 4 states kept the same thing that they got today. So this was basically science fiction. And if you crossed these states and you had any marijuana or anything that was illegal in those states, they'd take you and put you in jail. 46 states. If you if you're in any of the other states, you're fine. You can do anything you want, and everything was really nice. I called it science fiction then, but it's happening now. It's happening now. We got Washington and Colorado that have legalized possession of pot. I was fairly excited a few years back when they when they voted in medical marijuana in Arizona. I thought, wow, man, for the first time in 45 years, I might not be a criminal no more. But it it turns out that I couldn't get it. I couldn't get medical marijuana because I'm too healthy. I don't go to doctors. I don't need doctors. I said the reason I'm so healthy is I've been smoking it for 45 years. You know, I still got my tonsils. I still got my appendix. I've still, you know, I don't have any heart problems, and I don't have cancer. Nothing wrong with me. And I have a little problem with medical marijuana, though I think it's a step in the right direction. Why should I have to pay a doctor, who are the real drug dealers in this country, selling you Valium or Luvox or encouraging you to get this flu shot? They're killing us. They're killing our children. And why should I have to pay him, bribe him, to give me a prescription for something that God gave me? I got a real problem with that.
Well, again, you know, it's all about behavior. You know, the whole system is created. Washington spoke about this. He said, getting into the political arguments, the politics. This is what's going to be the destruction of our country. You know, putting one up against the other. And they've learned that. You know, you got the right against the left, and the right is really, you know, ultimately the Nazis, and the left is ultimately the communists. And so it's two extremes. And what they're doing is they're constantly fighting for power to take the authority of the legislators. And once they get the authority, you know, once they get the legislators to control the legislators, then they start to make laws against the left. Or the left starts to make laws against the right when they get in control. And what we're doing is we're putting each other into prison. We're in statutory prison. People don't realize it until you make that one little mistake somewhere, and all of a sudden you're finding that you're being charged with some criminal charges, and you're in a prison. You're in prison right now. People need to wake up. Again, there's only one way to change this and fix this. I've been searching for years. I've been involved in this since the late 90s is when I woke up, and I've been involved trying to figure out how are we going to fix this problem. And when the Ron Paul movement came, I thought maybe that might be part of the solution. And then the Tea Parties and the 912s and all the other Liberty parties and everything else. Then we started going into the courts. We started to try to get the elected committeemen back, because that's a facade also. There are no committeemen. They're all controlled by the two private associations called the Republican and the Democratic parties, and that's a top-down structure.
Two wings of the same bird, and the bird's
right.
a global vulture. It ain't no
right.
eagle. It ain't no
That's
eagle.
right.
Now,
So,
you know, we've had the answer. The answer is in our Constitution that barred titles of nobility, and the 13th Amendment. The England declared war on us to get rid of that 13th Amendment that barred titles of nobility from holding office. Today, we don't have any separation of powers, and the lawyers are in the presidency, the lawyers are in the executive branch, the lawyers are in the Congress, they're in the Senate. So there is no separation of it. They're in judicial. They control the judicial. There is no separation of powers, and all of these people answer to a foreign entity. I would assume that the Bar Association is headquartered right there in the city of London, right next to the Rothschild world banking conglomerate.
Right. Well, yeah, and they created the American Bar Association, and they were working in this country as the English Bar Association prior to the 1900s. I think it was 1909 when they incorporated the American Bar Association. But we had bar lawyers in this country for a long time doing their destruction, their dastardly deeds. And The 13th Amendment, yeah, there's no doubt about that. You know, we have a book online called The Sword and Sovereignty. I'm sorry, not that book, The Young Americans. It was written in 1842. And in there, it shows it talks about the 13th Amendment, and it shows it's clearly in there, and that it had been, made law. So, I mean, sometimes between the early 1800s and 1860, they removed it, and then of course they replaced it with another 13th Amendment. Look it gets back to the same thing. We're so dumb, and I speak to myself first. We have to wake up. And, they're poisoning our water, our food, they're poisoning our education, our religion, they poisoned our government and our judicial system. Everything, we will be as honest and as just as our courts are. And believe me, our courts are a mess. It's nothing, the mafia has nothing on our court system, nothing. Okay, so we have a serious problem. If we want to fix America, you fix your court system. You fix your court system, you'll have justice throughout all of America. And again, the message is out to the people. We're getting it out to the people. And anybody hearing this message, you need to get involved, and you need to become a jurist. You need to sign up, and you need to assist everyone else in your county to create a common law grand jury and get it going, and get the people back in power, because only the people can save America. There is nothing else out there. I have searched for years. Maybe I missed something, but I don't think so. There's nothing in the political realms that you're going to be able to do to save this country. You can't watch on Washington and think that that's going to do anything. We had the Continental Congress 2009, for those who are aware and understand what that was about. And the Continental Congress, they came up with the conclusions of the problems, and they ordered the government at every level, from the town all the way up to the federal. And on the same day, I think it was April 19th, 2010, across the entire United States, in one accord at the same time, the people that were involved with that movement of the Continental Congress met in their capitals. And at the same time, they marched into their capitals with flags and groups of people to deliver the Articles of Freedom to the people, to the government of our country, on the state level. And they did this in all 50 states, to the Assembly and to the governor, all at the same time, and in Washington, the federal government, to the legislators and the president and even the courts, all at the same time on the same day, and they were met with silence. The news media didn't even report it. What is wrong with us people? It's time for people to wake up and step up and take their country back.
Thomas Jefferson warned us, if you ever allow a private bank to issue your money, the banks and the corporations that spring up around them will leave your children homeless in the land that we've conquered.
That's right. And, when you go to court, it's all about settling the bank problem. It's an equity system. And it's all about settling the balance within the court. That's what the courts are about. It's all about money. Every time you walk in there, everybody's making money but you. They're taking it from you. The lawyers, they find out how much money, and that's how much money you got, and that's how long your court case will go. It'll go for years if they can milk it for that long. And the judge works along with all this. And he's getting payments. He's getting all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of things going on to his retirement plan, And when you go into what they call the criminal court, okay, and they put you in jail, they're making money off your SQ funds. For those who understand what that's all about.
Why would people want to? You get caught with some pot in your pocket in Texas, you can go to prison. You can do, and they're going to bill you taxpayers for $50,000 a year to feed and clothe this criminal. Now they made a criminal out of it.
Right.
And for what? For what? Why are we paying this kind of money to keep somebody that has never harmed anyone in prison? I put it this way, Obama. Tear down that wall between us and Mexico, replace it with tables, and abolish all the laws against victimless crimes. Allow the Mexicans and the Colombians the Peruvians to bring all of their crops up here, their cocaine, their marijuana, their hashish, whatever. Lay it on a table, pay a duty on it, and let Americans buy it right there. That solves the whole criminal killing drug cartels.
Well, yeah, it would eliminate a lot. Well, most of the illegal activities. It would eliminate a lot of the problems. No doubt, the cartels, the mafia, everybody. A lot of business would be destroyed, and we wouldn't have as many crimes going on because most of the crimes is around there.
Now,
Absolutely correct.
The problem is, and I've documented this in my book, Mystery Babylon: New World Order Unveiled. And under George Bush as CIA director, when George Bush was CIA director, before he became vice president, before he became president, he ordered Operation Watchtower. Now, Operation Watchtower went on concurrently with the Iran-Contra affair, and that he used the CIA to go down to Colombia to build radio towers that were used to guide over 100 planes into Albrook Air Force Base, where George Bush's partner, run by Mossad agent Michael Harari, they brought in over 100 plane loads of cocaine, and the money changed hands, and from there they shipped that cocaine up to George Bush's employee, Governor of Arkansas, by the name of Bill Clinton, to a little airport named Mena that was brought in by somebody else that I happened to run across in my travels, Barry Seal. He flew it up there. Of course, they murdered Barry Seal, and they threatened me. We're going to let you live this time, Clay, but don't do anything like that. We vetted all this information in the Noriega trial, and so the CIA and the Mossad are bringing all the drugs into this country. They took over the drug cartels. I've told people there's a couple of things I can't tell you. I can't tell you if the press controls the government or if the government controls the press. And I can't tell you if the government controls the mafia or the mafia controls the government. 6 of one, half a dozen of another. It's a criminal operation. And Israel is a safe country. They created a safe country through the Balfour Declaration with England. They created a safe country that now has 400 or 500 nuclear weapons, nuclear submarines. They bragged about being able to hit any capital of Europe. This is blackmail on a global scale, and you've got dual citizens here, a lot of them lawyers, a lot of them doctors that are working here and ripping off the American people wholesale.
Well, they want to criminalize everything. They want to demoralize the people, criminalize them. Look, they created the family court system, which was supposed to be a good thing, and they demoralized that. And the purpose of the family court system is to entrap as many families as possible and destroy their children. That's what it's about. And when you get to the end of your life, on the other side, in the probate court, they want to destroy your life when you're in the twilight of your life. They want to destroy whatever family is left. They want to destroy it there. And everything else is in between, you know, on what we call the Supreme Court or the Court of Commons, you know, that court which is supposed to be within each county that represents the common law. They destroy us in there. And everybody's a criminal. And that's the problem. And again, nothing's going to get fixed. Nothing's going to stop until people step up and do something about it, and only the people can do it.
Well,
no one person can do it.
The problem is, first of all, these people are programmed. Second of all, they've been dumbed down. I've had Charlotte Iserbyt on my show. She talks about how Americans have been dumbed down by the public fool system. There are answers to this. I've got Timothy Bible College and I got the Little Red Schoolhouse up on my site. We're going to have this your information and your connection here. We've and they're trying to do it, taking another step. We got the FEMA camps out there. They're making these FEMA camps for families, and I've got a question here. We've got about a few million homeless people, people that were kicked out of their homes, had their homes repossessed by these criminal banks. And what happened to those people? Where are those people going? Are they putting them in FEMA camps? Are they starting to round homeless people up? We got people living in Las Vegas, Nevada, in tunnels under the city, in New York, in tunnels under the city. Homeless people. They're creating millions. They've created millions of us, and now they'll give you some shelter in a FEMA camp, but you can only leave for a couple hours a day. You got to take their bus to leave. I mean, this is again refining the art of slavery, isn't it?
Well, no doubt. Look, America's all but lost. They've destroyed our economy. They've destroyed our manufacturing. They've destroyed everything in America. They've demoralized us. They've destroyed our education. They destroyed our judicial system. They destroyed our food, our water. They destroyed our relationships with other countries. We are a destroyed country, a nation. Each state is a country. We are a destroyed nation. But there is time to fix it. The Constitution is so powerful. The Bill of Rights is so powerful that that's what's been holding America on. If it wasn't for that, we would have succumbed to this 50 years ago. But it's because of that we're still here. And we still have that opportunity to grab onto that last limb to do something about it. But I'll tell you what, there's not much time left. They're about ready to pull down the monetary plug. When they pull the monetary plug down, it's all over. It's done. It's going to be bloodbath in the streets. And I certainly don't want to see that. That's why I'm working as hard as I can to solve this problem, to stop it. And again, I get back to the same thing I said before. Only the people can do that. And if the people, listening to this program or any other program that we're on, we get this message out and then they agree, but then they don't do nothing, well, shame on them. And you've decided that you don't want America to continue. We need everybody to do the heavy lifting. Everybody. And it doesn't take much time. Just support the system, even if you can't get too involved in working it. Give it your 10 minutes a week. Get involved somewhere. But look, if people don't do it, we're not going to solve it. We don't have much time left. I'm very surprised to see that 2014 is here and we're still talking on the internet. I am extremely surprised by that. But I do know that they did have plans numerous times in the past to take it down, and just this past, coming into this winter, they planned to take this country down, but they failed. They failed in Syria. They didn't accomplish that goal there. And there were some other problems, and their problems, they tried to pull the wool over the people's eyes with shutting down the government. That was major military leaders who went up against it and refused to go forward with it. They were all fought. Since this guy has been elected, we've had 200 military leaders removed from service. Generals and colonels and admirals, high rank, that just refuse to go along with these unconstitutional things. And so they're replacing those people, and they're resetting the whole system, and it's going to happen again this year. And I'd only be guessing, when, so I'm not going to guess when, but I'll tell you what, as far as I'm concerned, it's coming soon. And people need to do something now. We don't have time. We don't have the luxury to wait. We got to do it now.
I agree. Hang on a minute. I'm just bringing another station that dropped off here. Hopefully they can come back up. All right, we got back on Crusade. Sorry for the break there, folks. It went offline and I didn't see it. We are trying to get it now. I'm working with a gentleman by the name of Noah West, who again is under pretty heavy attack here by these communists, fascists, whatever you want to call them. But he has a plan for restoring the self-sufficient home. Now, I've told people for years, the foundation of every civilization, Richard Kelly Hoskins put it well, the foundation of every civilization is the self-sufficient family farm. And I proposed the restoration of that self-sufficient family farm in the form of something called Liberty Villages, providing housing for homeless veterans and using them to grow food, build solar panels, become self-sufficient. Now, Noah's carried it to another level. He has, and this is on the cover of this issue, the January 15th issue of the Free American. This, he calls it a super home, and it's a 3-story structure made out of reinforced concrete. It'll withstand winds up to 350 miles an hour. It'll withstand tsunamis. It's got a garden on the roof. It's got water in the basement in a storage tank that collects rainwater and processes it and filters it. And with these solar units and you know, we've also got other units out there, magnetic motors, that are banned by the corporate governments because they don't want you. You know, I've said the reason they've got why UFOs are so top secret, they don't want you knowing we got the technology that we could go to the moon for lunch and be back here in time for supper without using a drop of gasoline. But these homes, the Noah's Ark project, it's all linked on my website. He's talking about doing these in communities. We got 400 acres in Florida to do the first one on, built by veterans, providing housing for veterans, and we don't need the power companies, we don't need the oil companies, and we damn sure don't need the government or the court systems in these communities. We can reestablish self-sufficient communities, and we can do that in one block if the people just worked together and turned off that damn television and started working together, started talking to their neighbors, and got involved with the common law juries. We could turn this all around within the year. Within the year.
Oh, easily. Right now, what we have done in such a short space of time, we've penetrated all 50 states, and it's moving quickly. You know, I've seen states where they only had 2 or 3 people, and you look in a month or 2 later, and they got a couple hundred people. You know, we have thousands of people involved with us across the nation right now, and we're ready to go on some of the bigger stations, the national stations. And I think that's going to really open this thing up, and we're going to really the floodgates are going to go. And it's a very powerful system or thing that we found. This is what our founding fathers set up for us to control our country. You know, we have government by the consent of the people, and this is it. This is where you get to consent. You get to consent what the government is doing, both in the judicial and the political realms, right here through the juries, through the grand jury alone that operates and constantly is out there, you know, police dogging these people, making sure that they're obeying the Constitution and that they're doing the right thing and they're not doing their criminal activities. And until the people get into the courts and start watching what's going on in all of these government offices and all these elected officials, until we get in there and start doing these things, we're going to have what we deserve. You know, we deserve what we get. Now that the people know what the truth is and what the job needs to be done, if they don't do it, then they deserve it. And I certainly hope, for my own family's sake and my sake and the people that I love and know, I hope for their sake the people get up and do something, you know?
You know, I started the militias over 20 years ago in New Mexico, and John Trockman is a friend of mine. He started the Montana, militia Montana, and he just quit. He quit after I got out of the hospital. I called him up and, what are you doing now, John? What's going on? Well, I'm just selling advertising for a little local paper. Why, John? Why would you quit the militia of Montana? He said, you know, Clay, we tried to tell them what FEMA was going to become. We tried to tell them what the Federal Reserve was. We tried to tell them what NAFTA was going to be. They wouldn't support us then. They wouldn't listen to us then. They won't help us now. They won't help us now. So to hell with them. They're going to get the government they deserve. I can understand that, and I felt like that sometimes, but I can't do that. I can't do that.
Well,
I can't stop.
I understand the apathy. And here's the message from the people working or doing the common law grand jury to those people. Whatever problem you're involved with, or whatever, and the apathy you're filled with, it's like you're not getting anywhere. The grand jury can empower that movement. No matter what the problem is that you see, the grand jury can fix it. So no matter what it is that you're doing, if you're involved with the militia, if you're involved with really got some involvement with whatever liberty groups you belong to, the Oath Keepers or whatever, everyone can become a jurist. Everyone can get into the pool. Everyone can spend a little time helping to get this thing off the ground and get it established and get it happening in your county. It doesn't take a lot of work to do it. And it's just a matter of organizing it and constituting the grand jury, which takes a full half hour of your life to constitute a common law grand jury. And then a few active people will file it and pursue it and push it to the system. And then all you have to do is be behind them to support it. When the time of the heavy lifting comes, when the resistance comes, we've got resistance in New York right now. We got resistance in Florida. We got resistance in Pennsylvania. And our numbers are building. Our grand juries are building. We're becoming more and more and more grand juries. And when the time comes when we need the people for the heavy lifting is when we go up and face these people right at their courthouses themselves. That's when we need the people to come out. The people, they fear the people. And I want to tell you, they fear what we're doing. They lie in their newspapers. They got all their low-life newspaper reporters that'll say any lie that they want them to say, and they go out there and they lie. It's unbelievable the lies that they say. But I think the people are on to them. And but anyway, this will empower all the liberty movements. You know, Sheriff Mack is doing what he's got to do, and he's getting some headway. But I'll tell you what, when the grand juries are empowered, they're going to catapult his movement. They're going to catapult We the People's movement, with Robert Schultz. They're going to catapult what they did out there. Where was that, in Chicago, I think? No, it was, it wasn't Illinois. It was, I forget what state it was in. But anyway, where they did the Continental Congress. Okay, that movement and all that work, the Articles of Freedom that they came up with, we will empower that. We have used the Articles of Freedom in some of our court cases, and they couldn't answer us. They ran under rocks is what they did. You know, you go into court, the first thing they want to do is throw you out because they'll claim you have no cause of action. You could be laying on right in front of that judge with a knife out of your gut, and that judge will look down at you and slap his hammer on the desk, on his little table up there, and say, there's no cause of action here. They find you with no standing. You're nothing. You're nobody. You have no standing. Who are these people? Well, we have ways to battle them. We teach them up on nationallibertyalliance.org. And the bottom line is power and authority, and that's what the people have to get. They have to get power, they have to get authority, and they have to take control. Mommy and Daddy is home. It's time. The party is over. It's time to clean house. And if we don't do that, then we're going to lose it. And again, I keep coming back to this same old mantra, so to speak. If the people are going to do it, we're not going to have it. So it's time to get off the fat toughs and do it. We got to do it.
Well,
the grand jury will empower any movement you have. It'll enforce any movement you have. It'll make happen any movement you have. Anything that is what you see is wrong that you're trying to fix, the grand jury can fix it because they have the power and the authority. Obviously, whatever it is that you're trying to fix, it's because it's a wrongdoing by people in government. And that's the power of the grand jury, to go in and fix that wrongdoing, give them a prescription, and require them to obey the law, or else they'll bring them to the 25, and in all likelihood, they're going to be indicted. And when someone is indicted in government, they're removed from job. When you indict a judge, they're not a judge no more. That's the first order of business. They get under indictment, and they're removed from office. So if it's a politician, judges are politicians, they all be moved. If you're a clerk and you're actually just, employed by the government, you lose your job until this court case is over. Okay? So that's the power of the grand jury. And people, ultimately they don't want to lose their jobs and they don't want to go to jail. and they don't want to pay the toll, so they'll obey. They'll obey.
Well, I'm in Texas now. I see that Joanne has logged into the chat room, and I spoke with her last night. I believe she's your Texas coordinator. I will work with her any way that I can. I am certainly capable of going before the media and talking about this. I am the media. I have been for 20 years, and you folks out there, we've got the magazine and we got the radio show. The radio show is free. The magazine costs you $3, $2.99. It's you can get it at shop.freeamerican.com. You can listen to this radio show at freeamerican.com. Yeah, I've got all the links. All you have to do is click on the name of my guest and share this information. The media doesn't want you to know about this. I worked with a presidential candidate in 1996. His name's Charles Collins. Charles died 2 years ago, and he was the first Republican to sign up for the presidency. And every time he got up to speak, every cameraman on stage turned the cameras off and pointed them at the ground, because he was telling you we could buy back the Federal Reserve, we could eliminate the Federal Reserve, we could wipe out a $6 trillion debt that's grown to about $16 trillion right now. It was a false debt. We could have wiped it out. They didn't want you to hear him. They don't want you to hear me. I'm blocked in libraries. I'm blocked in. You can't walk into Office Depot and turn on a computer and listen to me. So you need to tell people. FreeAmerican.com. It's got all the links here. We will have this whole video up. We've got the video up that's up on the National Liberty Alliance site. It's now up on the Free American. Right now. You can hear this whole show. Pass it around. You've done some great work here, John. I really appreciate what you've done. I will invite you back as often as you want to come on the show. Anytime we got new information about the different states. And if you got some people in Hawaii, I'd really appreciate trying to help my friend there, who's been Roger Christie, who's been held for 3 years without a trial because they consider him a flight risk. A flight risk in Hawaii.
Again, once I appreciate all that, and once the grand jury is established in Hawaii, and we do have people working on that, once it's established out there, then the grand jury can be called into this case, and they can do a habeas corpus, look at this case, do a habeas corpus, and pull them out of jail. And then go after the people who kidnapped them. Obviously, if he's in there without due process, he's been kidnapped, and some other people are criminals using our government in order to exercise their criminal activities, and they need to go to jail. Those are the people that belong in jail.
Yes, sir. We've been putting the wrong people in prison. We're going to change all that. John, thank you for being with me.
Well, thanks for having us.
God bless you, and you're doing great work. Great work.
Well, it's up to the people to do it.
Shop.freeamerican.com. Spend $3 today. You won't regret it. This last issue tells you all about these super homes, how we can build them, how we can put the veterans to work, how we can eliminate homelessness, and how we can eliminate dependence on this energy cartels, which is just as bad as the drug cartels. God bless you all. Thanks for listening.